stuff. All right. Hello, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Welcome to channel RPG with DBJ. We also have ourselves collegiates and classmates as well over at Fantasy Grounds College. If you wish to participate through the Discord, because we simulcast there as well. Now, this week we've been talking about, of course, Cthulhu, illithids, madness, aberrants, to be specific, and about these other alien creatures and their mindsets and such. And each day, of course, we subdivide it. Today is Third Pillar Thursday, and Third Pillar Thursday is based on the third pillar of exploration, with combat and social interaction being the first, and second pillar of tabletop RPG interactions. So, of course, we've got combat, we've got social interactions, talking with your NPCs, intimidating them, deceiving them. But in the third pillar of exploration, for me and my definition, it includes layers and traps and puzzles and riddles and obstacles and all of those things mixed in together, pulling and combining all those things. And so we're going to use that combined with the the use of aberrants and what effect it would have on the world in general, and come up with some unique things that I believe that we could add into our group and whatnot. Infinite Roleplay, what's going on there? Morning, bro. All right, so exploration and aberrants. Well, what does that mean? For me, I think this takes there's a couple of steps into this. The first step for me, what comes to mind are the elements left behind when these creatures exist in the world. And I'm thinking Alien and Aliens, those movies where you see the extruded remnants of the passing of these creatures and such. I'm thinking of the Underdark with elder brains and illithids, and how they would have some kind of creatures extruding out materials that would make these round tunnels that lead off into the distance, and birthing chambers for, I don't know, squid-faced tadpoles or something. I imagine foul liquids dripping from the ceilings because it would be hot and humid. I'm thinking of undersea realms and deep ocean cities and such. I'm picturing mindless creatures that they've created that are being used to create the realms that they live in, to make places far more hospitable. Yes, the serious side of Squidward, I would dare say yes, very much so. The flesh that hates? The hell are you talking about, Infinite Roleplay? Oh man. So, and of course you have to have slave pits. You have to have, I'm thinking, eating chambers, brain-like eating chambers, maybe, those kind of things, in and around the environment. And if you want to get even further, there could be a form of, I know this is mixing it into Future Friday, but maybe a terraforming nature to it, where there may be gases that are being released from maybe geysers or other materials that make it hard to breathe. For me, I'm not sure if they live in humid conditions, but I'm picturing humidity and thick fog sometimes, maybe down in deep tunnels or on the surface world, as they are like hive creatures mounding up materials so that it becomes it feels more comfortable for them. I believe after that point, then we can get into into some of the deadlier areas and some of the things that are far more psychological. Oh, if it no, no, no. I don't know who's the bigger geek. We're gonna have to measure that. I think we're going to pull out our geekness and measure that out here, right on the table, right now. Um, I'm thinking after that fact, we may have situations where we get into more psychological exploration and hazards, things that will drive you mad, things that may draw out deep-seated fears or guilt, or pull you into maybe a dreamscape or a nightmarish realm or something. Seeing things, turning a corner and seeing things that no man should see, entering chambers or having the need to pass by sphincter door chambers to go into a place, and the only way to enter it is to unlock it in a particular mental state that for the illithids is pretty common, but for us humans with conscious and a subconscious mind always warring with each other, that it would be far more difficult. And then of course at the very end would be a completely ethereal or astral realm that is nothing but pure psychic energy and such. So going back to the physical elements of it, and mind you, this isn't reserved for just mind flayers or beholders and whatnot, but since of course we're talking about aberrants, we're going to focus on them. For the physical acts, I'm thinking of pools of acid and fluids. I'm thinking of chambers filled with the removed dead bodies. After the illithids eat the brains, what do they do with the dead bodies? Do they feed them to their we talked about displacer beasts? Like, do they feed them to their displacer beast pets or something? Are they being used to throw them into pits of acid so that could feed their younglings that might grow in tadpole infested lakes or something? I mean, we really don't know, or rather we could know, but we could have some fun with it too as well. Even going so far as to, with the body horror elements of it, are there creatures moving and flowing around their havens that act like red blood cells and white blood cells and neurons and things of that nature? It's like, do we want to know? Maybe not. I mean, what's the creature, the gibbering mouther? I mean, is that kind of creature, does that thing flow around their havens because it cleans up the mess that they leave after they've got their stomachs full after eating their 8th brain that day, and they're just like, oh, belching and burping like, oh, I'm done. And just toss the body aside. And then these oozes they're not enemies, but they're not in control. They just perform jobs that clean and scrub the walls and ceilings and floors of their xenomorph-like places. I'm not sure, but for me, I'm thinking, oh, man, that'd be kind of cool to have the PC sneak into a place and they feel fluids dripping off the ceiling, and it lands on one person's hand and they realize it's a gray ooze or a black pudding or something that just happens to be something that these creatures grow. Now, one real basic fact, and I know you guys have seen this before, about, say, beholders, that because beholders float, they don't necessarily need to operate on a vertical plane. They can go extremely horizontal. And, there's the idea of the beholder, trapping the PCs in a 100-foot vertical a vertical shaft, and the PC's not being able to climb up the shaft, but the beholders above them just blasting them away. Well, first of all, yes. The answer to that is yes. But even with mind flayers, they have levitation and other abilities and such. So just going vertical instead of horizontal can create so many other hazards. Same thing with, we brought this up with drow elves about how they could live in the in stalactite havens, with the lower folk living in the stalagmites below them. And so, in order to into the upper chambers, they have to have some form of levitation, or be invited, or somehow scale ceilings if they're deep down in the underdark to get into those locations, or find some kind of flying mounts or something. And that in and of itself, as far for me as the exploration pillar, is it's it's the puzzle that doesn't have an answer, but the PCs need to find the answer to it. And finding that answer, gives them so many different options. Are they high enough level to use a fly spell? Does someone shape change or wild shape into something that can fly? That kind of thing. Um, Rickard says, I think, quote, don't think too much about it is a good policy when it comes to aberrations. I absolutely agree with you. And again, the mixing in the idea that not all challenges need to be physical to overcome them. For example, a hive, like an insect hive, but imagining it writ large for medium-sized creatures or large creatures. There may be such a maze that the PCs must go through that they can very easily become lost, without street signs and details that are easy to follow and such. So the navigation might be intelligence or wisdom based, in order to make your way through it, especially if some of those tunnels are the types in which the PCs make a wrong step and slide down a tunnel that might twist and turn and deposit them into the proverbial Star Wars uh, Star Wars trash chamber that is like, going to sphincter shut and close everyone in, getting rid of the trash and debris and the decomposing bodies and such. And it might even be possible that we love ourselves some Atiogs, right? We love ourselves the creatures that eat human waste. They could be growing them or allowing them to grow in these pits where all the dead bodies are dumped after they've eaten their fill of human brain matter. And so again, PCs slipping into a pit, or being pushed down into a tube that slides them down into these nasty locations filled with oozes and Atiogs and decomposing bodies. I'm having some fun. I'm having a little bit of fun with this, because I'm thinking of different of changing up the idea of just a big brain, a bunch of mind flayers, and PCs pulling their swords and confronting it. I'm thinking more in terms of traveling through these maze-like conditions, and it may be possible. It may be probable that the PCs have to, they have a lot of elevation changes. They go up a tunnel, and then they get to a split where there's like 5 different directions, and then they have to slide down and then move up a vertical tunnel, and then at the top of that vertical tunnel it splits 3 more times. Now it could be very, of course, theater of the mind would be very difficult to describe that. But if you have enough images, especially, you could download some images of real hives, like those constructed by ants or beetles or something of that nature, and then upload those into, like, say, Fantasy Grounds, and have a number of photographs that you can use, or images or paintings and things to describe what you're talking about. And also, again, going all the way back to Monster Monday, instead of the place just being filled with only mind flayers or only beholders, we can add tentacles and eyeballs and other kinds of body horror to any number of creatures that are roaming around our little haven and such, cleaning things. What does a mind flayer dog look like? I don't know, but if it looks like a displacer beast, I'm all in. Also, springing some of these so-called traps may be psychic. So, for example, to open up a door, maybe the PCs must place their hand or use a mental some kind of mental key to open up a door, again, making the the relationship to like sphincter doors or whatnot. I'm not sure exactly how the door. Maybe they're living maws, like they look like they're open with slightly jagged edges, and then you realize that they're just mouths that just can close in on you, um, uh, munching on you or whatever. I don't know, but it might take. You can't pick the lock, but you have to use an intelligence or wisdom or even charisma check to bypass the inner security of these locations. And of course, for them, they're just like, well, I just use a mental signal and get on through. It knows what I am. But maybe these doorways and whatnot are mindless, strangely. Maybe they're strangely mindless in the fact that it only takes something to convince it to let you through, but it doesn't really, it's not really linked into a hive mind. But then again, we do have the problem of having a hive mind creature, a creature that's linked telepathically, and that creates its own hazards. So maybe exploring the outer realms of the invasion of the mind flayers and whatnot. Maybe there are other creatures or materials that send out psychic, like a psychic resonance that is able to cover what and who the PCs are. So, for example, a group of slaves are being brought into the inner sanctum of these mind flayers and what they're doing. In order for them to bypass many of these things, maybe the slaves have something placed on their heads or draped around their necks, or there's a chemical that is applied to their faces or something. Maybe they're giving off a particular pheromone that they've been marked with, so that these other hazards that are there are not going to just kill them, because hey, we need these slaves to work on something or excavate something in the Underdark, or some of them are slaves, some of them might be food. Going back to the body horror element of mind flayers living inside of a living body, just like our heart expands and contracts, and just like blood flows through it, and much like muscles expand and contract, maybe there are tunnels and pathways that do the exact same thing. So, for example, it could be the PCs must time their way through certain doorways or certain tunnels before the tunnels like squeeze in on each other and then open and squeeze and open again. And now, for right now, I'm thinking there's just air. Okay, so the PC can breathe air, but maybe through the exploration, because this could be a puzzle of sorts. So follow me on this, right? The puzzle could be timing both how their haven is a living thing. So maybe every 3 rounds, this 30-foot tunnel contracts in and squeezes in and then releases, and squeezes in and releases. Or maybe there are these so-called, what we're thinking of doorways are what's around the heart? The valves. The valves close and open and close and open. And if the PCs can time it to get through, then that may be how they're able to navigate through this area. And the timing of that might be a little bit difficult as well, especially if the PCs can only go through a doorway one at a time, and then some big bad comes in, I don't know. We're going back to Displacer Beast, because I love Displacer Beast as well. The blind Displacer Beast that can only see psychically comes around the corner and starts, sending out a psychic scream to get help or something. And the PCs are on either side of a door that keeps opening and closing, because the sphincter just keeps like opening and closing. And then they realize in 3 rounds the entire tunnel is going to squeeze shut, adding in that tension, building in a time factor. For me, that pressure is a great tool to put into a player, into your tool belt as a game master or dungeon master, to say, hey guys, not only do you need to explore this area, but you have a time limit in terms of how to do it. You have a time limit whether you're standing still or moving forward and such. And of course, if you have a big giant beating heart, the beating heart, maybe you can even feel it through a multi-storied um, hive, or like an anthill writ large, made from the extruded chemicals of the beasts that they bring, that the mind flayers have brought to this world. And when the PCs go inside, they can actually feel the rumbling of the beating heart inside of this thing. And they know, if there's a heart down below, maybe the brain is up top. Maybe, yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to bring something in and infect this place. And maybe if we infect the brain, it will send its infection straight into the mind flayers, who are the, I don't know, the white blood cells of the elder brain or something. Like that could be the way to solve the problem, in terms of it, in addition to drawing your sword and I hit it with my sword, right? So, and now, again, using the idea of the human body and such, and the idea that mind flayers might either come from some deep outer plane or outer worlds or something, or even the deep ocean. It's possible that some of their locations might be filled with some other fluids, whether it's ocean waters, salt water or something. And the PCs realize, oh, wait a minute, we've got to go. Hey, they breathe air, but they're also aquatic creatures. Maybe we have to swim down into these tunnels, and we don't know where, or if we're even going to be able to come up for air, or there may be these long tunnels. Um, I've never heard of SCP, the flesh that hates. So thank you, dead man. That was posted in the Discord chat. So thank you very much. Oh, uh, FYI, if you are part of the Fantasy Grounds college and you join their Discord, if you go over to the left and slide down to the boiler room, you'll see all of us hanging out down there. And if you want to post any links or pictures or something like that, you can also participate that way, if instead of using the YouTube chat function. Now, I love the idea of mixing environments for PCs as well, such as needing to swim in areas where they've normally above ground, mixing in some of that little bit of aquatic flavor if you want to, flooding anything, flooding a city or a town or a tower, or the flooded birthing chambers of the mind flayers or beholders or something, is yet another third pillar function that we can use, as well as the fact that we can also steal from, i.e., reskin from some of our other creatures that already have, say, layers and layer actions themselves. For example, I'm thinking of black and green dragons would be appropriate for it. This swampy, acidic kind of miasma, and just reskinning some of it. Instead of a black dragon living in a swamp with their noxious fumes and gases and acids and things, I can imagine swarms of insects being, well, I guess they would be swarms of insects with a little bit of a body horror flavor to it. Adding a couple of tentacles, got to have some tentacles in there, being a little bit moist, flowing around people's heads and such. I very much feel like you could just replace, take the black dragon, get rid of it, or keep it. It could be, I think a black dragon could be reskinned as massive beasts in the employ of an elder brain, or pets of the mind flayers, or enforcers, maybe a step above the mind flayers as enforcers or something. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't even have to look like a dragon. It could, like, instead of breathing out acid, maybe it's got like a little rectal sphincter that that it kind of squirts out something akin to diarrhea or something on the PCs, which in and of itself is just that just sounds really bad. A creature that's just like, it gets to make its third attack, it's going to shoot diarrhea at you. you know um Sorry for your scatological humor, but hey, whatever, it fits. So, um, so those kind of things. A matter of fact, with the beating heart, I want to before we move on, uh, the idea of the yeah, what's with you with sphincters today? Well, I don't know. There might be some players that might want to soothe the sphincters before they close in. Some people might have a little bit of an attraction to some sphincter like like action. I'm gonna put my head in it. Don't do that. Please don't. That's not chocolate. Dead Man the Storyteller says D&D third edition had creatures that were mixed creature types like dragon, abomination, hybrid. Oh, that's right. I even think third edition and Pathfinder has like half templates. So there's a we could easily make half templates, right? Just take some elements of like what makes a mind flayer and just layer in some of those actions. Like for example, an option would be to reskin what blind sight is. So is your blind sight like sonar, kind of a combination of tremor sense and blind sight? Is it psychic where they can sense sentient creatures, but maybe the Warforged or something, or some PC has created something where they're like a half undead and they aren't sensed or something? Are you on a cleanse? Wouldn't you like to? Oh, I've got some photographs. Let me show you guys. Hold on. No. Infinite Roleplay says the D&D third edition Savage Species book. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I got to move past it, guys. I'm sorry. little, real off track with this. It's pretty nasty. So okay, going back to the hive haven that's like internal body functions. Okay, maybe some of these tunnels or things are filled with noxious fumes and gases that are spilling from one area to another. You could even you can even include things such as strong winds or flowing fluid that flows through some of the tunnels, maybe being used as a way to have nutrients flow from one place to another, or like a blood flow. So the PCs might be in a situation where they're confronting some enemies, and then they hear this rushing, this roar of fluid, and they're like, "Is that a flood or something?" And you're like, "Well, it wasn't raining." And then all of a sudden, around the corner, the sphincter that was what is sphincter? Jeez, you got okay. The valve that was closed opens up and floods the thing with some kind of purpley green fluid with other bits of detritus and debris in it, while it tries to get rid of the decomposing materials that are in and around the tunnels and such. And maybe after it flows through, using some acrobatics and or athletics checks to hold on, failures pushing people so many feet down these chambers, and each round, if you don't hold on, you'll be flushed away, or forcing the PCs, whether it's, I like to use initiative 10 for more what I consider mundane, as opposed to initiative 20 for specific layers. So maybe like every initiative 10, everyone's got to make a check, or they just get they end up getting pushed further and further down because of the rushing water or fluid or something of that nature. And then even maybe after it's done, it leaves little deposits of maybe insects or something like that that are cleaning up whatever is left, or the giant spider versions of something that heal or are extruding materials out of their bums to seal up the hallways that maybe the PCs have cut their way through. And as well, there's no saying that these hallways need to be made out of stone, or at least hard as stone. There could be membranes that are as thin as rice paper, and if the PCs push through it hard enough, they can come through on the other side. Yeah, if it's have I proven to be more a geek yet? I don't know, man. We're still in our scatological humor region, so we're gonna have to measure that out later. Uh, okay, so oh boy. Okay, moving on from there. Moving on from that point, let's get into some um more of the psychological horror portions of it, the psychic energy, the psionics of the psionic, yeah, geek level 9,000, yeah, hell yeah. um so moving on from there, we definitely have the idea that it's possible that the Illithids understand how superior they are to us mere mortals and us mere humanoids. Same thing with beholders and anything of that ilk. So it may be possible that some of the environment in and around the locations and the places where they're invading have a psychic element to it. Maybe there's a fungus or a plant or some kind of mold or mildew or something that covers certain areas that elicits a certain type of psychic reaction. And so when getting close, instead of making a dex save to fall into a pit, it could be a wisdom save, or you're besieged by horrors from your past, or when you come near a decomposing pit of the bodies of the dead, maybe maybe they're inadvertently creating ghosts and wraiths or banshees because of the psychic horror of killing so many people, that they're leaving some form of residue behind. And so that might be a way for you to layer in even more hazards, where the PCs may have to navigate their way past the decomposing pits of the dead, because floating above them or around them are just the screams of people in pain and horror, and they just want to, they're in death, they are trying to hold on to anything that will save them, but inadvertently they are grabbing onto the living creatures that are around them and drawing them into their pain, because they so much want to escape it, but it's something that's just like an echo of sorts of their deaths. And this may be a way for using exploration, where here's where you both have a confrontation, you have an encounter. Let's say, let's take the banshees, let's go with that. So PCs are quite a few miles away, maybe on the horizon. They see something that looks like a volcano, but it's really not a volcano. It's spewing out noxious fumes and gases, and they know inside is the elder brain, and under their feet they can feel the beating heart of of this invasion force, and they're building these areas, and they're almost terraforming the planet. And they come past a place where the restless dead are screaming out, and maybe the PCs find out clues. Not only do they have to dispatch the banshees, but they realize that there's a clue to get into this place further, or that this is the residue of the people that they've hurt and injured, and there's a way for the PCs to duplicate some of the psychic residue, or given a key to get in further, or maybe they're even able to um, allow their spirits to move on. If there's a cleric in the group, or some other arcane caster that's allowed their spirits to go on into to travel um, to escape and go onto the outer realms and go into the higher planes of goodness or something. And they leave a little bit of like, you need to watch out for and then you fill in the blank, so they're able to get some information through them exploring around. Also, it's because of the arrogance of some of these extraplanar creatures, and something I brought up, I didn't really go into it too deep, because of their alien nature, they may leave clues and show weaknesses, because to them it's something unimportant, but to us it is extremely important. So a child leaves a small toy, or a person leaves a map, or someone leaves a key, to them, it just looks like another piece of debris. But for us, it might be a clue in terms of sneaking around or entering into a location. You know, the the parent that wants to be near their child or something because they're panicked. For the mind flayers, they're like, I don't care if you whatever. It's fine if you want your kids with you, whatever. I mean, I'm going to eat you anyway, so what do I care? Whereas there may be rebel forces that are exchanging notes or details or something, and the Illithids might just not even pay attention to it. It might be completely under their radar. A song or a poem or a riddle or a haiku that gives clues to let other people know about clues is a big thing as well. Much like the the slaves that were brought over into South America that learned capoeira underneath the eyes of the slave masters, right? It's the hiding of things in song and dance and maybe tattoos, or using code words to to send information. And the PCs might be hearing these relatively benign songs and then uncover the riddle of, oh, these songs relate to a way for us to find out about rebel forces that have been fighting these things. We just thought they were these weird children's songs, like, oh man, or thought they were just these old songs left by the people of this location, right? So again, this is a great way to maybe add in some riddles without completely stopping the actions. That's one of the problems with puzzles and riddles, is often they're placed in front of closed doors, locked doors. And my policy is you'd never want a locked door. So you don't want the PCs to literally and figuratively stop in front of a door, be unable to open it, and therefore either go in another direction. Therefore, all that prep, those 50 pages of prep that you had, they can't get through the door, and now it's useless. Or doing the analysis paralysis, where they sit there trying to figure out this thing, and you as the dungeon master or game master, like you're chomping at the bit because you want to give them the clues, but you want them to figure it out on their own, and they're stalled, and for 45 minutes they're trying to figure this one simple thing, and you want to scream and pull your hair out, and you're like, oh, okay, the answer, here's the answer, fine, whatever. In this way you can actually spread amongst your group a number of riddles and still have them proceed forward. So maybe they never solve the idea of why there are these songs or poems and whatnot in random locations, or they come upon NPCs that say really cryptic things to the players and go on because they don't want to be found out by the enemy. And the PCs are like, why did that person say, something about the rising sun always sets in the east or whatever? And you're like, no, it doesn't. It sets in the west. What does that mean? So you could, but then you can reward the players that are piecing these things together, especially if you, for example, you could make in Fantasy Grounds, you could just make a little bit of you could type it out and leave it for something for them to find, and they can click onto it, and someone can be reading it and trying to put it little notes and such, so that they have, instead of simple magic items, treasure, maybe they find other things, old scrolls, elements, that kind of thing. Yeah, hashtag cryptic. Hashtag the complete package. Absolutely, always, right? The rising sun always sets upon the shoulders of a broken soul. Exactly. And each of those things might be a clue that they may uncover yet one more thing. For example, there might be mind flayers that have been excised from the elder brain because they are in its own form diseased or injured or not up to snuff or something, and they themselves might be a little bit insane and want to attach back to the brain, and in their own dismay, they may actually, the PCs might even be able to convince some of these exiled mind flayers that, oh yeah, we'll help you get back to the brain. And of course they're a little bit insane and a little bit distraught. They're like, thank you so much, telepathically. I will lead you to the brain so that you can convince it to take me back into the fold, not realizing that, yeah, we're not, yeah, whatever, we're not doing that. You're dead. We're going to cut your head off once we get there. Right. But again, using the environment, again, using more of a adding in clues that they can find. And let's get back into our like psionic psychic environment as well, where the PCs might, much like a hacker breaking into the corporate headquarters of a place, there may be one or more of the PCs that must go into a psychic realm to distract or uncover or unlock or draw away some of these other figures. For example, the PCs may get to the base of the Hive Mountain, and they realize, or one or more of the PCs realize, like, you know what, there are actually some mind flayers that are actually out here in the ethereal plane. Like they're like ghost figures patrolling around, and if we can't see them, they're going to know who we are. So one, you and you, we're going to concentrate. Like maybe the psychic energy is so powerful around them that the PCs can willingly just concentrate, do the whole yoga pose or something thing, and concentrate and flow into a psychic realm. And then maybe that's how some of the PCs are like, listen, we're going to draw them away while you guys sneak in. And somebody else, hey, one of the PCs like, well, I'll sit back and guard your body so they don't get dragged away or something. Or maybe to sneak in would be to separate your minds from your bodies, and mindless creatures, going back to the displacer beasts, and I don't know, the giant spiders there. They put the unconscious bodies on their backs by using some of their anal extrusions and wrap your bodies up and maybe take you deeper into the chambers, and that's how you're able to sneak in. I mean, there's so many different ways, methods of entering into some of these places. Now, lastly, we could go into a pure dream realm where maybe the big boss fight isn't on the physical plane at all, but it is a confrontation with the elder brain, and it's all about force of will. And it's possible the elder brain has never confronted the chaos of a humanoid mind in such a way, or it could be extremely powerful, but one of its weaknesses is that it really doesn't understand what human beings or humanoid beings are like. It doesn't understand the psychology of elves and halflings and such. It's just like, and that might be the in terms of, again, replacing like the strength and dex and con with like intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, respectively. Movement could be mental. So the higher your intelligence is, the faster you move, the higher movement rate you have. There could be many types of mental traps set up around the elder brain. So, for example, you can easily Google like the top 10 fears everyone has. I think insects, snakes, public speaking, heights, drowning, fire, like those are like your top your top fears, and maybe those fears are the things that the PCs must navigate around. And you can even make this worse by each PC has their own fear, which cannot be confronted by any of the other PCs. So if one PC is like, yeah, Deadman says spiders and snakes, so maybe the 5 PCs go into the main chamber of the elder brain, and the elder brain lashes out. And mind you, now when I say this, what I'm actually doing is, we know one creature against 5, they're dead, right? 5 PCs against 1, dead. But because of action economy, you could say, well, the elder brain lashes out and draws out your worst fears, and or it could be the worst fears of humanity in general, and the PCs are just happen to be assaulted by those worst fears of a collection of humanity. So the elder brain might draw into the world giant spiders, giant poisonous snakes, um, uh, magical pits, illusionary pits. Well, maybe not so illusionary, but pits that you can fall into that just are summoned right near the feet of the PCs and have them fall into it until they are mentally able to resist falling. So the PC goes near pit. The layer action of the elder brain is that you fall into the pit. You fall 60 feet down into the pit. Boom! Smack your head. All of a sudden, the pit disappears, and you're standing on solid ground with everyone else. But you've just, air quotes, fallen into the pit. And that could be a mental image, like you thought you fell into a pit. It could be a real one where if you imagine it being real, it is real. And it could be the fact that one PC that falls into the pit, no one else sees it. The other PC that's fighting giant spiders, no one else sees those. And it could be, you could make a random list and have it change round by round. So on one hand, maybe one of the PCs is being assaulted by like a fire elemental because, fear of burning. And then another PC is being assaulted by like a water elemental, fear of drowning. Public speaking, that's a different one. Although you could be sneaky and kind of silly, and the PC suddenly is standing there naked and they have nothing on. The paladin is there without their sword or armor or something for a certain amount of time because they believe they're completely exposed and naked, and no one wants to be that in front of like a public audience with a bunch of people just laughing at them or something. I don't know how you would do that, but there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to bring that into fruition. But my point being is, again, I guess I'm going back to the reskin and reflavor and stuff, that you could bring these psychic fears into reality, making it physical. You could bring all the PCs into a psychic realm, making it all mental. This could all be illusions so that the PCs may think it's real. And then one of them is like, what if this is just an illusion? And then they break that portion of it. Or it could be so powerful that know they're illusions, but the psychic resonance is so powerful that they still have to fight it off, right? It's like there is no way to disbelieve it. These are just creatures, again, being able to manipulate our action economy by maybe flooding the elder brain with all of these strange things, because the elder brain may not even know. The elder brain may not even consider that it is creating fears of people. It just knows, what, these animalistic humanoid things that we love to eat their brains. It happens that they just don't like these thoughts. So I'm just going to blast their brains with thoughts. Now, to make it even more personal, if the PCs have had fears of their own and bringing them into the light, maybe the paladin, instead of the paladin being naked before fighting the elder brain, it could be that I don't know, one of the paladin's mentors or the head of the paladin order is standing before the paladin telling them, you should have never gone on this adventure with the assassin that's in your group, and you'll pay for your disloyalty and breaking your oaths or something. And the paladin falls to his knees like, I'm so sorry, I must atone, or something. Like, you could make it very personal for the PCs. The cleric sees an image of an avatar of their deity arrive. The warlock character imagines their warlock patron coming to them and telling them they should, this is a fight they can never win, and casting disparagements on them or so. You could make it very personal and reskin it to be something extremely personal, as well as the fact that maybe when they get to the elder brain, they can't see the elder brain anymore, and they have to work their way through a chaos of dreamscapes where the laws of reality are no longer physical, but they're all psychic. So it could be that they have to push their way through nightmares, and maybe specific nightmares of loss and rage and hopelessness and anger and pain, and um it's so on and so forth. I There are someone has done art, I'm sure Dead Man, I think you can find this, where someone drew artwork that was the embodiment of different types of psychological conditions like depression, um, um, schizophrenia, et cetera, et cetera. I know it's pretty old. I'm going to say at least 5 years old. But those could be the creatures or the embodiment of those things, and the PCs maybe have to push through to get to a different place. For example, I know you guys have heard of the term. Like the soul assassin, being killed by 1,000 cuts, people's words destroying you. Dead Man says Deviant Art has several artists who've done that. Yeah, uh, that you could embody the idea that people who are using words to cut down someone is literally causing 1,000 cuts to the PCs as they push through a psychic dreamscape or something. And then lastly, as we start to come towards the end of this hour, that you know using exploration is, for me, is far more than just walking from one place to another. It's far more than just, oh, it's difficult terrain. It is, we have the ability to reskin our creatures, reskin layers, reskin all the traps that we have available for us, peppering in some riddles and some puzzles involved in it, um, coming up with obstacles, but none of the solutions, allowing the players to come up with multiple answers to the situation that you've put in front of them. For example, the PCs come upon a huge plane that's the size of a football field, and it's pockmarked with with circular holes or something. And the PCs are like, this place is covered with hundreds of like pit traps. You're like, well, no, you can see what they are. And then flowing out of each of these holes are like maybe purple worms or tentacles or something, and they randomly come up and try to grab the PCs and draw them down into the pits. And so the idea might be, okay, do the PCs navigate in and around each of these holes where something dangerous can reach up out of the hole and try to grab them? Are do they try to fly over it and then become, is it easier for them to maybe slide down one of the holes, and they find out that if they slide down one, there's literally nothing but a hydra down at the bottom who's reaching its heads or something up? Anyway, the long story short is, it's the idea of putting a rope bridge in front of the players. Do you run across it? Are you careful? Do you go across it one at a time? Does everybody go across it together? Does one person stay back so they can cut the ropes? How do you know? And then layering on top of the environment, your combat. So is something happening randomly in the background that causes the PCs to make different decisions? Are the opponents, the PCs, fighting native to this location? So when the poisonous gases are expelled out of the geyser, is the creature just used to it because this is where they live? Or are the opponents, adversaries the PCs are fighting, are they just as victim to it as well? Did the PCs end up chasing the orc horde into the lair of the mind flayers, and the orcs are like, holy shit, like, we don't need to be here, like we're in as much danger as they are, and of course, Rickard says make it a grate so the PCs can see the wriggling mass of tentacles move about, of course. And then maybe the grate is maybe under their feet, or is it above their heads, right? Is it against the wall and reaching out from the wall, or any of the above? Um, Sometimes traps are like gotchas, right? You don't see the pit trap. Uh-oh, you fell in, gotcha, right? But you can foreshadow all of this stuff and put it in front of the PCs and go, you know what? Yeah, you're right. This is dangerous. What are you going to do? And sit back and watch them think about it. And then you absolutely add in a tension, a pressure modifier, a thing that pushes them forward. Sure, you can wait a half an hour and try to decipher whether you want to walk over the metal grate with the tentacles reaching up and the mind flayers are feeding their tentacled creature with the dead bodies of the people they've eaten the brains out of. But behind you is something else. So what are you going to do? Are you going to move ahead? Are you going to go backwards? Or what are you going to do? Come on, make a decision. Quick, 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 quick. Rickard says all around so that the mass is pushed up against the grates on all sides. Yeah, heck yeah. You know me. I love myself some closed dungeon grates with undead reaching forward, or the now mind you, of course, using the environment allows you to move the spotlight around. Sometimes your heavy hitters need to move up front, so you're less combat efficient ones are sitting in the background. Maybe at another time, the heavy hitters are chopping off the tentacles that are reaching for them, while your ranged attackers are like, oh great, can I just fire through the bars? And I'm thinking in my head, I hadn't thought about that, but well, hell yeah, you can. And they're blasting through the bars while the heavy hitters are up front, pushing their shields and weapons up against the tentacles so they don't reach for anybody. Like, just being able to move that spotlight around and using the environment to make some people might shine better than others. It's possible that the sneakier, more silent ranger and rogue might be more effective in sneaking around the underdark tunnels and whatnot, whereas maybe again when there's an open plain, maybe they're less effective. So changing the environment and not just using the default, it's difficult terrain, which allows us to really change how we interact with some of our more mundane, more common creatures. Like I always bring up goblinoids, right? The most, maybe skeletons and zombies might be up there in the top most common interactions that we just go like, or hordes again, whatever. But if you change them around and put them in different locations, you can still use the orc horde by reskinning it when we're talking about aberrants, by giving them strange features and instead of giving them making them look like orcs, maybe their faces are just nothing but a big maw of sharp teeth, and then you don't see any eyes on them at all. And maybe they have a big hump on their back, so instead of standing upright, they're more marsupial, kind of a monkey bonobos shaped in misshapen forms, and maybe they carry clubs or sharpened spears or the broken off claws of giant spiders and scorpions or something, and they speak in their own strange language, and they have a psychic resonance where they click and chatter. So you can reskin and make them something else. Maybe they're small insects that crawl on their backs and that they carry with them, so that you maybe you make a BFF creature. So they're not just orcs, but they're orcs surrounded by a swarm of centipedes or something. And again, reskinning, reshaping, reusing, and using this to make that aberrant, horrible, I really don't want to look at this thing, I really don't want to touch it, kind of event. And of course, we have ourselves. You got to have torture chambers. You have to have people being their skin flayed open, their internal organs pulled out. You have to have lots of body horror in it, as well as maybe the survivors of these horrible attacks, the blind oracle whose eyes were pulled out, the others who have been had their limbs removed or driven insane by the tortures done to them. And these individuals may give the PCs clues as they go on, because these handicapped individuals, using it in the horrible way that these aberrants would use them, that they've handicapped these people and they're useless, but they didn't realize that they unlock something in these individuals. And so those might be the NPCs that the PCs could bring along with them, so that they are both effective in solving the confrontation as well as fading into the background, because they can't literally take them with them the entire time, right? It's a way to prevent the Mary Sue from taking over the party, when the blind oracle is like, their psychic energy is keeping me back. I can't go any further. You must go on without me, kind of thing, right? So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being a part of this. I think we stayed, except for the scatological humor, which was my fault. I think we stayed on point with this. So guys, thank you very much. Tomorrow is Future Friday. Please take part in that. We're going to continue our talk about aberrants. We talk about modern day all the way into the far future. And then we kind of bring it in a big giant circle back into our medieval-ish type games and such. So guys, thank you very much for joining me. I will see thee tomorrow. Bye. Bam.